Hello everyone, welcome to Before the Kickoff, the Daily Iowans weekly pregame show and your number one source for Hawkeye sports. I'm Brady Barron, and right now this is a special Thanksgiving break edition of Before the Kickoff. As you can see, I'm not in the studio, I'm in front of Kinnick Stadium, and that's because everyone on the team is enjoying time with their families for Thanksgiving break, but we're still going to give you everything you need to know before the kickoff. And first, we're going to take a look back at Iowa's victory over Maryland last week with DITV's Colin Crithers in his hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio.
I'm back in my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. As you can see behind me, the skyline of downtown. But if you focus in right here, that's Paycor Stadium, home of the Cincinnati Bengals. And yeah, I don't really want to talk about their defense, so we're going to leave that aside. But it's also the home of former Hawkeyes Eric All Jr. and Geno Smith. Now, when you look at the Bengals roster, Eric All is unfortunately hurt. But when you look at Iowa's roster this past weekend, it was Caden McNamara, Brendan Sullivan, Jamari Harris, amongst a bunch of others who were injured. So how did the team fare without them?
Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa Hawkeyes making the trip out to College Park, Maryland, where they would face the Maryland Terrapins, and a good amount of Iowa fans making the trip out to the East Coast and CQ Stadium, which was hosting Senior Day for the Terrapins. A fun, emotional day all around, and Mike Loxley, head coach for the Terrapins, would lead his team out of the tunnel. Currently with a 4-6 record, they would need to win this game and their game this upcoming weekend against Penn State to be bowl eligible. Well, opening drive of the game, it's a handoff to Kamari Bolton. You see the ball there on the ground, fumbled away, kicked off to the side, and recovered by Maryland. At turnover for Iowa's offense to start things off. But they were still getting on the board first with this short-range Drew Stevens field goal, 1 for 1 on the day so far. A quick 3-0 lead by Caleb Johnson. First touchdown of the game, and now officially program record holder, single-season rushing touchdowns with 21. He passes Sean Green, officially now number 1 for Iowa. And then a little compilation of field goals from Drew Stevens here. There's number 2 and number 3, both from long range. 3 for 3 now. Keep that number in mind throughout the rest of the game. A little bit later, though, 16-0 lead for Iowa. Rolling out to the left side, Maryland getting down, both feet in the back of the end zone. A beautiful toss. You got to celebrate that with Testudos, the Maryland Terrapins mascot. Now they would go for 2, not able to make it. They trail 16-6, but they get 19-6. 4 for 4 day. Another long shot there from Drew Stevens. Maryland trailing by quite a bit. It's been a slow start on offense. Weren't able to get things even across the timeline and eventually find their second touchdown of the game, 19-13. But then, Kamari Bolton would shut all this down. Let's speed this up as he breaks away. Long touchdown for him. You're here for the touchdown. You stay for the celebration, though. Dancing around. A huge touchdown for Kamari Bolton, the second one of the day for the Hawkeyes. But then, the defense also has to step up with a slower game overall. TJ Hall breaking up that pass, almost getting an interception, but just 2 plays later, going to the same spot. TJ Hall's in front this time, and he lays out for the interception. First interception of the day for the Hawkeyes. Yeah, I'd be pretty frustrated too, like that Maryland fan, to see you go back to the same play that was almost stolen. And then a drive later, Max Luan tips it away, and Jay Higgins is right there for the interception. Give the credit to Max Llewellyn. And then a 5 for 5 day here with this field goal from Drew Stevens. It's the first time he's ever done that in his life, going 5 for 5. But it's the first time an Iowa kicker has done that in program history, as Iowa would pull away 29-13.
After that game, Iowa now averages about 29.4 points per game. That ranks them 55th in the country, which cuts their ranking from last year in half. Back to you, Brady.
Colin was there at the game live, so he got to witness that Hawkeye victory in person. But now switching gears a little bit to this matchup, the Hawkeyes are taking on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and while it is a rivalry game, it's also senior night, and the Hawkeyes will get a chance to honor their seniors.
It's always a bittersweet time. It's kind of like being a parent. There's a time where, guys move on and they go on to the next phase of their lives. So, you're happy for them. You want to see them have great success. And same time, you hate to see guys leave too. 23, seniors will be recognized. 10 of the 23 are walk-ons originally here. Some have gone on and earned scholarships. Other guys haven't, but they've stayed with the program and really done a great job.
Tight end Luke Lachey will have his father with him on senior night. His dad, Jim Lachey, is a former football player for Ohio State, and he's currently a Buckeyes radio broadcaster who's ending his 357-game streak and missing the game between Ohio State and Michigan to be there for his son in Kinnick Stadium.
We wanted to be at my senior day and everything. So yeah, it means a lot. But to miss that game too is really substantial, and something he obviously wants to be a part of, and but he's been a part of a lot of them. So I'm excited that he'll be here, and we'll get to spend a lot of time with our family.
And while it's the last time in Kinnick for all of the seniors, for Iowa's daunted linebacker duo of Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson, it's the last time the two best friends wore the black and gold under the lights.
I had the opportunity to watch Campbell and Benson, and so I knew what a Mike and Will Backer relationship looked like. And so the moment we brought in Nick, I was going to do everything in my power to force that relationship. But luckily, it was just natural. And when you're out there taking the field with your best friend, it's pretty nice.
When you have a guy like that at that caliber, two people who are on the same track, the same mind, it's been so fun. And then off the field, that's my brother. That's one of my best friends for the rest of my life. I'll call him, I'll text him, and it's not just an Iowa thing, it's for life. He's my brother.
And with the season coming to an end, the seniors are reflecting on their time in the black and gold while appreciating the time they have left.
You look back and you enjoy the ride, but you got a couple more games left. So it's been awesome. It's been fun. It's been everything that you can dream of and more.
College athletes, we're living a dream right now. And I just hope all the younger guys really appreciate the time that they have in this program.
And while this matchup is senior night, this game has ended Iowa's season for a few years now. So to give us a little bit more on the history between these two teams is DITV's resident historian, Elise Gann.
Every other professor in the nation may have this week off, but this one right here does not, so let's get right into it. This Big Ten matchup between Iowa and Nebraska is always an interesting one in what is called their annual Heroes Game that recognizes individuals from both states for acts of heroism. The Hawkeyes and Cornhuskers have been battling since 1891 with their first ever game landing on Thanksgiving, but things became a lot more serious as soon as Nebraska joined the Big Ten in 2011, when the Heroes Game tradition began and the Heroes Trophy made its debut. Reverting back to their old ways after Nebraska's Big Ten entrance, the Hawkeyes and Cornhuskers continued their Thanksgiving tradition, except now they play every Friday after the holiday. The series between these two teams is back and forth as Nebraska leads 30-21-3, but Iowa leads 9-4 in the trophy series. After defeating the Cornhuskers last year, the Hawkeyes look to do so again in celebration of both Thanksgiving and the Heroes.
But enough about the past. With this weekend's matchup, Nebraska has already hit that bowl eligibility mark for the first time since 2016. So on the line this weekend is momentum heading into bowl season and, of course, that Heroes Trophy. The Hawkeyes enter the game averaging 29.4 points per game, while Nebraska averages 25.1. Iowa's defense gives up just under 18 points per game, while the Cornhuskers give up about 20.5 points a game. So these two teams are definitely close in overall averages, but that never tells the full story. The Hawkeye passing attack is one of the worst in the conference, and they're going with Jackson Stratton at quarterback this weekend. While he has made some good throws his last time out, he didn't light up the stat sheet, and they didn't need him to, with Caleb Johnson rushing for 164 yards and a touchdown to add to his league-leading season. The Cornhuskers have a little more firepower on offense with five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola. Raiola has struggled a bit through the middle of the season, but an OC change has the Husker offense rolling. Against Wisconsin, Raiola had 293 yards and a touchdown while taking care of the ball, while the ground attack shined with Emmett Johnson racking up 116 yards and Dante Dowdle punching in 3 touchdowns. Defensively, Nebraska is led by Ty Robinson, who's racked up 6 sacks so far this year, with 10 tackles for a loss as well. The Hawkeyes have a few guys defensively worth noting, but Ethan Herkett has put together a nice season on that D-line rotation, bringing down the opposing quarterback 4.5 times this year. Against Maryland, he had his best outing of the year, racking up 2 of those sacks. Nebraska might be more well-rounded offensively, but Iowa might have the advantage defensively, so we'll just have to see how this one plays out in Kinnick Stadium. But all across the country, and especially here in the Big Ten, it's rivalry week, so let's see what DITV Sports Director AJ Reister has with his look around the Big Ten.
Guys, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys are having a great time at home enjoying this break from school. But that doesn't mean football sleeps, especially in the Big Ten. Rivalry weekend is upon us, which brings the biggest and best matches of the year. Starting in Columbus, Ohio, the game, Michigan, Ohio State in the Horseshoe. Michigan has won the last 3 matches in a row, but this year the Buckeyes are favored big time. The Wolverines were gutted after their national championship run and just scraped together a bowl-eligible season, coming off a 50-6 victory over Northwestern. But on the other side, the Buckeyes have a national championship run on their mind coming into this weekend with a 10-1 record and are coming off a top 5 win over Indiana, 38-15. Kickoff for the game is set for 11 a.m. on Fox this Saturday, and the Buckeyes are 20-point favorites in this one. Another conference game I have my eye on is Minnesota-Wisconsin, the battle for Paul Bunyan's axe, one of the more historic rivalries in the Big Ten. Minnesota is coming off a close loss to 4th-ranked Penn State, 26-25. Most of their losses this season has been within 1 score, and they're looking to bring the Axe back home after falling last season 28-14. Wisconsin trying to keep it in Camp Randall and become bowl eligible with a win. The Badgers are coming off a beatdown loss to Nebraska 44-25 after playing Oregon tough 2 weeks ago. The Gophers are just 1-point favorites in this one, and kickoff is set for 11 a.m. on Friday on CBS. Outside the Big Ten, the SEC rivalry weekend is unmatched. But the biggest game will conclude the weekend between number 3 Texas and number 20 Texas A&M. This classic in-state rivalry has playoff implications on the line, with Texas a favorite to be a top 4 seed after their 31-14 win over Kentucky last weekend. But Texas A&M, on the other hand, is trying to sneak in, but it will be a lot harder after their 43-41 overtime loss to unranked Auburn last weekend. And if they can get a win against number 4 Texas, watch out. The Aggies could be a backhand team that sneaks into the college football playoffs. Kickoff is set for 6:30 on ABC, and the Longhorns are 5.5-point favorites in this one. That's a look around the Big Ten and the country. Guys, what games are you most excited for this weekend?
I know AJ talked about it a little bit there, but the game is just so iconic to me against Ohio State and Michigan. I'd be hard-pressed not to bring it up. Growing up, my family would put on a free Thanksgiving meal in the North Liberty community for anyone in this community to come and get a free meal on Thanksgiving. So a lot of the times our family would celebrate on Saturday, and with that, the game would always be on Big Noon Kickoff. Ohio State, Michigan is just such an iconic game for me. But now it's time to take a look at this week's Kid Captain story, and Colin has the story this week. But first, before we get into the story, at Tuesday's press conference, Coach Kirk Ferentz talked a little bit about the importance of the Kid Captain and what it means to both the team and the community.
With children's medicine, what I've learned is there's a sense of community. It's obviously the doctors are in charge and they kind of set the direction, but you got the nurses, the children's specialists, the therapists that do all the work, and the other part is anytime you go over and if you visit anybody in the hospital, children's hospital, there's always a family member there. I mean, it's like 98% there's going to be a family member there. So in some ways it resembles or parallels sports in some ways. There's a sense of community. There's a sense of extension beyond the patient leaving. You know, you listen and learn. You know, you learn about people and the stories. You know, we're trying to make a first down stop a first down. I mean, put it in perspective, right, in some of the work that these folks all do. And I think the real heroes over there are the nurses and the therapists. With all due respect to the doctors, I'm not minimizing their role either, but they're the ones that are there all the time and just, you know, so good with the patients. And then the other aspect is just, you know, kids have amazing you know, just kids tend to be pretty optimistic, you know, they really do. That's pretty cool to see.
At the time, I asked the air care team if I could just, once they got him stabilized, if I could just say goodbye. We didn't know if I would see him alive again.
Lucas Hazen has faced extreme odds his entire life, including before he was even born. 26 weeks into his mom's pregnancy, they discovered multiple brain bleeds. Lucas was then born 34 weeks early, where he was immediately airlifted to the said Family Children's Hospital and diagnosed with neonatal alloimmune thrombocytopenia. Till this day, Lucas still visits the hospital for cerebral palsy, cortical visual impairment, and seizures. He's also had spinal fusion surgery for scoliosis in the last year, has had 2 hip reconstruction surgeries, and continually attends different therapies. But despite all of this, he still manages to be a positive light in everyone's life.
He is the happiest kid. He has the most genuine smile you will ever see. Like I said, he is pretty profoundly disabled, so he doesn't know anything other than just love.
With his disability, he uses an eye case device to communicate. It's a speech device that allows him to share his thoughts and words without necessarily speaking.
But his eye gaze device, he has started to be able to say hello or ask someone how they are. He has been identifying colors and numbers and letters. He can tell you if he's hungry or thirsty. He can answer yes or no.
Lucas has grown up a Hawkeye fan his entire life, and the entire family is excited for him to be represented as the kid captain in the blackout against Nebraska.
Most looking forward to 70,000 plus of Luke's Hawkeye family cheering him on. It's not only exciting to be on the field and experience that from that point of view, but also we've been on the other side of that glass before.
Lucas will be in attendance for the game and cheering on some of his favorite players, including Luke Lachey, who walked him onto the field for Kids Day.
All year long, the kid captain story has been a great way to kind of close out the beginning part of the show and segue towards the end, and it has just absolutely been great being able to tell all of those stories this year. But now it is time for predictions, and AJ did win last week. He had the closest prediction, so he is the champion again, and once again my losing streak continues. But that's all right. It's been a blast doing this all season long, and I do have one more chance here today to try to win that belt. But first, let's start off with Elise with her Hawkeye highlight and score prediction.
For my Hawkeye highlight, I'm going with running back Kamari Moulton. With Jackson Stratton as starting quarterback, the Hawkeyes will do a significant amount of running, and as we've all stated before, Caleb Johnson can't be the only one playing the running game. Moulton had a solid game against Maryland last week with Stratton as QB, and I think he'll be able to do it again this week. As for predictions, I think Iowa will take their final win of the season against Nebraska 31-23. If the Hawkeyes execute their running game to the fullest of their abilities and maintain their strong defense, they will plaster themselves on the scoreboard several times, ending the season with a bang.
Let's kick off the predictions for myself with my Hawkeye highlight. I've got Drew Stevens coming up big in this one. Last year in Lincoln, he was pulled for the game-winning kick. Instead, it was the backup kicker, Marshall Meter, who walked off Nebraska, sent them packing, and not to a bowl game once again. And it was Marshall Meter who closed out the regular season with a walk-off win. This season, I expect Drew Stevens to bounce back in this massive rivalry game. Last year, he was pulled. This year, I expect him to make a comeback and have a big game. As for my prediction, I am now the reigning champion after beating you guys last weekend in the game against Maryland. But this weekend, I do have Nebraska taking down the Hawkeyes to end the regular season in Iowa City 27-10. Nebraska absolutely dominated last weekend against Wisconsin. They were a favorite to come in and possibly have a chance to win the Big Ten. Obviously did not pan out the way they wanted. Dylan Raiola in his first year in the Big Red, trying to figure things out, but he's looked decent and has gotten better and better weekend in and weekend out. I expect Nebraska to roll into Iowa City and get a big win against the Hawkeyes. Guys, that's my prediction for this weekend. Maybe not the most glamorous to end the regular season for Iowa, but I guess I'll have to listen to what you guys think about this one.
For my Hawkeye highlight, I'm going with center Logan Jones. Kirk Ferentz talked about in the media presser earlier this week that he's impressed with Nebraska's defensive line, giving head coach Matt Rule some credit. So when it comes down to the game, you're going to need Iowa's offensive line to make a push so Iowa's run game works, and it all starts with the leader on the line and team captain Logan Jones. So if Iowa wants to win, they're going to have to win off the snap. And this is going to be some true Big Ten football this Friday. You want to talk about under the lights, Kinnick Stadium, battling for a trophy, rivals, and then of course the weather. In the mid-20s, you can't ask for much more from Big Ten, so who's going to take it home? Honestly, I've been debating the score all week, but I've got Iowa winning 27-17 and keeping the Heroes Trophy in Iowa City.
Couple of big Hawkeye wins there with those predictions. We'll have to see how it all plays out, but first let's talk about my Hawkeye highlight. Last week, I had whoever's in starting at quarterback, and this week, I'm going to stick with the quarterback, but this time it's Jackson Stratton. We know who it is. He got a couple nice throws in the wind up at Maryland. He didn't light up the stat sheet, but he did some nice things, and offensive coordinator Tim Lester did go out and watch him throw over the summer, bringing him in. They say he's got the best arm on the team, so I expect him to at least keep things afloat, maybe make some plays this weekend against Nebraska. Now for my score prediction, I've got the Hawkeyes winning 24-21. It's always a close game. It always comes down to the wire. I think the offenses might be a little better this time around than they were last season, but this game is always a close one. And with that, the final episode of Before the Kickoff for the regular season comes to a close. Thank you, Elise, AJ, Colin, and most importantly, you for tuning in all season long. It has been a blast working on this show all year long, but this is not goodbye. It's just see you later. We'll be back in about a month for Iowa's bowl game matchup to break that down and tell you everything you need to know before the kickoff. But until then, from the University of Iowa, I've been Brady Behrend. Have a fantastic weekend of football.